And isolation is the most damaging thing that you can do to, to human physiology. We knew in the mortality space that if you wanted to cut a human being's life expectancy in half, and I mean in half, at any age, you put them in isolation.
Wow.
So what happens in broken heart syndrome? Why, after being married for 30 or 40 or 50 years, when one spouse passes away, does the other spouse go shortly thereafter? Well, it's not really the broken heart. It's the immediate isolation. It's the first time that they've been isolated, maybe in their adult lifetime. And for most of us, we're isolated in plain sight. The basics of longevity that we know that are non-exchangeable. And then when everybody asks me, what's your favorite modality for extending life? Should I get a red light bed? Should I get a sauna? Should I get a cold plunge? Should I get a PMF mat? Should I get a hyperbaric chamber? All those things are great. And I have all of those. And I believe for different reasons in all of them. But until you've mastered sleep, whole food diet, and mobility, until mobility is non-negotiable, that has to go with time outdoors, a sense of community, sense of purpose. And that comes from the tone that you set as a father, being really present with your kids. If you do those 4 or 5 things, you're going to raise really healthy, happy kids that know who they are.
And they were like, if your parents are 50 or 60 and they live another 10 years, that's 10 more summers that you can spend with them if you see them once a year.
Right.
If not, you might have 4 more months of time with them.
Right.
And that's it.
That's it. Yeah. And when you see it on a visual chart, it really drives the point home. So I try to be very present when my kids are around. I try to intentionally schedule time in our calendar for family time. I leave here on the 25th. I go home. I spend one night at home, and then putting the whole family on a plane, and we're going out to the mountains, for 5 days for Thanksgiving, and just very intentional, just them, highly focused on the family. And truly, I live life for the in-betweens too. It's great to travel and be in all of these incredible circles, but the truth is what I really look forward to most is just that time with them.
Gary, welcome back to Dubai, which is becoming a place that you frequently visit.
Yeah, I love it here, man. I mean, infrastructure, safety, food, hotels, ease of getting in and out of here, incredible. What's fascinating is last year I came 2 days after that crazy rainstorm.
That's when I met you at the palace. It was just after that.
It was right after the rainstorm. We met at the palace. There was a huge jiu-jitsu tournament in town.
The karate combat was happening.
Karate combat, big tournament in town. And GSP was there. It was a lot of fun. And I'm getting on the plane in New York, and all it is images of Rolls Royces floating down the street, people going by the Burj Khalifa and a Sea-Doo, like a freaking jet ski. And so I was expecting complete, total mayhem. Right before I actually took off, it said 3 million bags lost at the airport in Dubai. And I kid you not, by the time I landed,
sorted.
It was like, it was all sorted.
It was like there's nothing going wrong. It was
I'm like, did anybody tell these people there was a natural disaster?
So many people
said town just bang.
But they're super quick with that kind of stuff. And the funniest thing is, like, you could leave and come back, and you will see this. You will leave and come back, and you'll be driving. You'll be like, was that building there 2 months
Last
ago
time
when I was here?
Yeah,
and it wasn't. They just get stuff done.
And the scale.
Yeah, and efficiency as well. How they get it done is incredible.
Yeah.
Gary, I have 8 million questions.
Okay, we got time.
And not that much time to do it. But there's so many angles that you can. First of all, I want to commend you, because I was having this conversation the other day, and we were talking about the purpose of life.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe the truest, most purest purpose in life is to work in the service of others, and that is literally what you're doing.
Thank you.
And I have to commend you for that. And one day, I hope I could help as many people as you're helping, and do that thing, because that essentially, what other purpose is there?
Yeah. I mean, it's the greatest feeling in the world to be in service to other people.
Right?
Right.
It is. Now, we're going to get into how you got into the human biology and all that stuff. But I want to know, as a father, and it's weird how you become a father and everything changes from you to them. Right. So every time this is essentially a glorified video diary for my twins. Because, I grew up without a father, have no memory of him or anything like that. So the main reason for this podcast was, if I died tomorrow, I've left them with 2,000 hours of who I was, what I was interested in, who I used to talk to, the kind of jokes I used to make, and indirectly giving them life lessons through other people that know more than me, etc.
Sure.
So as much as I have questions of how I can better myself, my first thought is it transferable to children, everything that you do?
No doubt.
And is it a case of we should be starting as young as 7, 8, 9, 10, 11?
Oh, there's no doubt. I mean, if you look at the big data, which we have, you can pull it from blue zones, you can pull it from mortality data. First of all, children learn more by observation than they do by what you teach them, right? They are a lot more observant than you think they are. They know when mom and dad are arguing. They know when tensions are tight around the house. They know when financial times are lean. They know when they can speak up and when they can't. They know your mood by the shift in your face. So, that old saying, live by example, is nothing is more true than in the early prepubescent years of a child, is to be living by example, because they will learn by observation, not by what you tell them. You can tell them a million things. You tell them not to cuss, but they see you cussing,
and they'll bring up something that you said so long ago, and you'll be like, wow, that stuck with him for a year and a half and he still remembers it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's crazy.
Because it helped to shape them. So, in the early years, it's really important to just instill the basic fundamentals, that movement, prayer, community, sense of purpose. Being really present with your children is so important in the formative years. And by present, I don't mean in their presence. I mean in their present with them. It's being very intentional, being very authentic with your time, eye contact with your children. There's a ton of studies from out of Harvard University about the eye contact that a child receives, especially in playtime. Young children develop their sense of humor earlier when they feel connected to their parents. Sense of humor is one of the highest forms of intelligence, and it's one of the hallmarks of intelligence in really young children. And it happens earlier and more often in children that feel really connected, with their parents.
Feel safe.
They feel safe.
Because I've seen some of those kind of conversations where they're like, if your child makes a joke, farts, and then runs off, he's a really secure child.
A very secure child.
Where other people would be like, oh, that's so inappropriate. And no,
you should control his behavior.
That he just wants to be him.
Yeah. And as they start to act up and in front of their parents, and open up and actually, explore their sense of humor, that's one of the earliest signs of intelligence. And I've raised 3 children, 3.5, because I married my now wife 11 years ago. We got together. Her daughter was 5.5. She's now 17. And I have 3 children of my own, all of which work in the business with me. They're all bought into health. And I think the greatest thing that I did for them was I made mobility and exercise a part of their life. All of our activities were centered around triathlons and paddleboarding, and we took active vacations. We went to Costa Rica and did extreme vacations, and I brought them up, moving as a way of entertaining and building our own little community and connection. And then secondly, teaching them, again, by what you do, about whole food diet. If you don't start them on the processed food bandwagon, they won't jump on it because their palate will change. All too often we use food as a reward system for children. We also use it as a way to buy time when we don't want them to bother us. We'll give them anything just to silence them for a few minutes. The same reason why we hand them an iPad. Yeah. And the basics of longevity that we know that are non-exchangeable. And then when everybody asks me, what's your favorite modality for extending life? Should I get a red light bed? Should I get a sauna? Should I get a cold plunge? Should I get a PMF mat? Should I get a hyperbaric chamber? All those things are great. And I have all of those. And I believe for different reasons in all of them. But until you've mastered sleep, whole food diet, and mobility, until mobility is non-negotiable, that has to go with time outdoors, a sense of community, sense of purpose. And that comes from the tone that you set as a father, being really present with your kids. If you do those 4 or 5 things, you're going to raise really healthy, happy kids that know who they are. They're going to have an identity. They're going to be armed to go out there in the world and battle all the influences that are going to come their way. They're going to make some mistakes, but they're going to come right back in to the guardrails.
Yo, guys, I've got to tell you, look, markets move faster than ever. And technology is rewriting the rules of finance. That's why people are turning to Minotaur trading systems. Look, they're not some faceless bot. They're a team of Australians, Brits, and Americans building powerful algorithmic systems that run 24/7, analyzing markets, spotting opportunities, and executing trades with precision. Look, at the end of the day, with algorithms, they don't panic, they don't hesitate, they don't rely on luck. And with Minotaur, you never ever hand over your money. The system runs inside your own exchange, under your control, so you keep full custody and 100% of the upside. You're not chasing trends, you're using automation that works for you, leaving emotions and guesswork behind. Guys, if you're serious about discipline, predictable income, scan the QR code or click the link to hear from real clients and book your free consultation. I've had Costa on the show and he's broke everything down. The episode's also there if you want some more information on it. Click the link. 100%. I think I'm very lucky in many ways where I essentially am Peter Pan. I refuse to grow old.
Yeah.
I don't wear adult clothes. Honestly, it's like I got invited to a huge event the other day and they said it's black tie. And I was literally sending them pictures of, you know, those blow up dinosaur uniforms you get from Amazon, where it blows the air up and you're just running around and it looks like it's carrying you kind of thing. I was like, I literally want to do that just to show them that I don't want to pretend that I wear this stuff because I'm not comfortable in it.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? And I traveled around the world for 2 years barefooted, like no shoes on, you know, just earthing everywhere I went. Even my kids, when we go to the pool or wherever, I'm just like, don't put your Crocs on. Don't just walk.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
So true.
Yeah. And my wife, I don't know if you've heard of a person called a medical medium.
Oh yeah.
So she's a follower of medical medium. So she's always had that dietary, no, the boys have to drink celery and
celery juice in the morning,
all of that stuff. So I think we were very lucky in that we started them very early into this, where they don't ever say to us, oh, we want sweets, unless it's the weekend. And I think they only say we want something sweet on the weekend because they know that it's attached to the weekend. It's the weekend now, can I have a lollipop or can I have a chocolate? Where really, they don't really want it, but they know that if I don't have it now, I have to wait another 8 days to get it again.
And the fact that you don't restrict it entirely is a good thing too, because you don't want to make it impermissible because then they get really curious. This is why kids start drinking early.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's that forbidden zone, and once they have some autonomy, they want to go into explore the unknown,
thing, right?
especially with boys.
Boys, even girls. You can't, you tell, I was telling my friend raising girls, you're going to tell her, don't wear that, don't wear that. It's going to be the old bowling bag story where she'll leave the house and then get dressed somewhere else, and they're going to do whatever you don't. But so if you can explain it to them, and this is why sometimes my friends like, why do you talk to your kids like they're 14? And I'm like, because I like just telling them how it is and explaining. Like, I don't like to say no. I say no because, and explain why. And then if you still want to do it, do it. But I would rather you didn't because of ABCD.
Yeah, there's a really interesting study called the Spain Scale of Emotion, SPANE, and it stands for the Scale of Positive and Negative Emotion. You can look this study up. And essentially, what it looked at was the frequency that left a human being's body, and tied this frequency to different emotive states. So there's a certain frequency for vengeance, despair, resentment, jealousy, hatred, anger. There's a certain frequency for calm, for love, for happiness. What's really interesting is they found that consistently the most attractive frequency in the world, the highest amplitude frequency, was the frequency of authenticity. And so this is considered the most attractive frequency in the universe. It occurs only when someone's words are truthful and they believe what they're saying. So both of those things have to be present. This describes this whole explanation of intuition. We say that women are more intuitive. Well, they're not. They're actually more sensitive to frequency. And your children are very, very sensitive to frequency, meaning they know when you're being authentic with them or not. And there's an enormous body of evidence around eating meals together. The value of just dinner 5 or 6 days a week around a family table, no phones, just chopping up conversation. And the authenticity of these moments and how it builds their resilience and builds character. And this is why we sometimes are attracted to certain people and we're repelled from certain people.
Mm.
I mean, how many times my wife has said, I don't like that guy.
Yeah.
You know, there's just something up with that dude. And I'm like, what's the matter, dude? He had like shoes.
He's cool.
Yeah, he's cool. He's cool as hell. He came up in a Ferrari. I mean, he's got a brand new suit. What could be wrong? And then 6 months later, you're taking the knife out of your back. And, you know, this is because of their intuition, which is a sensitivity to frequency. And that authentic bond is not something that can be manufactured. It can't be manufactured on weekend family vacations. It can't be manufactured by buying them gifts and toys. It can't be manufactured by giving them everything that they want when they ask for it. It can't be manufactured by using food and electronics as distractions for your time that you owe to them. And so I don't have much parenting advice other than that. Don't change your life. Involve your kids in the life that you already have. Don't create a sanctuary for your kids. I mean, it's like you got to tiptoe around the house. The baby's got to sleep at 1 o'clock. The baby's got to sleep at 6 o'clock. I mean, that's fine to give the kids a schedule. But altering your environment to create a faux environment for them is disastrous. The first time you get on an airplane to go travel somewhere, you're going to have a 9-alarm fire on your hands, you know, that entire flight. Kids adapt. They're very resilient, and they're very responsive to frequency, the most powerful of which is authenticity.
And I guess vice versa as well, because especially with mothers, like you said, they know their kids.
Yeah, you know what was fascinating
out,
is
right?
my first wife, who's a very good friend of mine, Amy, we were married for 13 years, and she's a phenomenal mother. We decided we were going to separate the mother and the father from the husband and the wife, and we never actually separated the mother and the father. We only separated the husband and the wife. When we first brought my daughter Madison home, I was petrified. I was 27 years old. We weren't trying to have a kid. We weren't not trying to have a kid. But we brought this brand new baby home. I thought I was just going to break it, you know, because it seemed very fragile. And she somehow, without reading the book, just knew what to do.
Yeah.
My wife Sage, same way. Absolutely phenomenal mother. Her first priority is her daughter, Alina. And she's very intentional with her. She always makes time for her. She calls her every night. She's always worried about where she is. They have such a beautiful relationship. And what was fascinating about that early stage of motherhood, and it's kind of an odd thing because I usually don't talk about this or give parenting advice, but my daughter would be in the crib and she would cry. And my wife would know, oh, she's hungry. Oh, she wants to be held. Oh, she needs to have her diaper changed. So I'm like, how the heck do you know? It's just a noise. And she's like, no, that's the feed cry. That's the poop cry. That's the, I want somebody to pick me up cry. I'm scared. And I always kind of did the same thing, no matter what sound they made. I would first try to pick her up.
Changing a diaper again.
Then I'm like, all right, let's check the pants. You know, let's hold her and then let's stick a bottle in her mouth and just see what works. But it's really interesting to see this instinctual thing of beauty just come out of another human being. Because, you know, if you're a young woman and you're listening to this, there's an entire human being inside of you that you haven't met yet. And it will come out when you have a child. And same thing with a man.
And apparently genetics as well. The child keeps a certain percentage of the mother's genes, right?
That's correct. So, and the mother keeps a certain percentage of the child's
genes. Of the child's genes.
Even if the fetus doesn't make it to term. In fact, the fetus boosts the immune system and becomes integrated with the immune system of the mother. So if you were to get pregnant with a child and for any reason to lose that child, by virtue of the fact that it was at one time in your womb, is a part of your immune system.
And so that child, of the next child as well.
And part of the next child will continue to protect the mother long after that child is gone, if it didn't make it to term. And then, of course, when they're born, you get a lifetime out of it. I was watching an episode, I think it was with Peter Tia. I don't know if it was Peter, but and he was talking about a really scary statistic. He said an average parent gets 19 years with their children, and the first 18 are from age 0 to age 18.
And the last one.
And the 19th year is spread over the rest of your life.
Yeah.
I am so committed to not having that happen. Yeah. My kids are 27, 23, 21, and 17. And they all work in the business.
But that's where you found the loophole. You were like, that's not happening to me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep this village.
I won't let them move far away. I can take a zip line to my daughter's balcony. She's right in the building next door to me. My son lives 2 blocks away with his fiance. My youngest too. The youngest lives with us. The other one lives with us part-time. He's going to school. But they've all caught the bug of health and wellness and fitness. They all eat super clean. Mobility and exercise is a part of all of their lives.
And they did it by watching the example, right?
And they just did it by, the example.
The example that you led.
Yeah, I drug them to 5Ks and triathlons and paddleboard races, and it's amazing.
It's crazy how time is, because, like, thinking about it now, I have 2 8-year-old twins, and then I have a 24-year-old son as well, who's about 3 years younger than me. So I don't know how that happened. I was very athletic.
We'll
as
do
a
some
youngster.
DNA testing. I'm a big fan of DNA testing.
Right.
Probably not yours.
Right.
She lied to you.
And the crazy thing is, I watched this thing where it was like, it's like the opposite of what you were just saying. And they were like, if your parents are 50 or 60 and they live another 10 years, that's 10 more summers that you can spend with them if you see them once a year.
Right.
If not, you might have 4 more months of time with them.
Right.
And that's it.
That's it. Yeah. And when you see it on a visual chart, it really drives the point home. So I try to be very present when my kids are around. I try to intentionally schedule time in our calendar for family time. I leave here on the 25th. I go home. I spend one night at home, and then putting the whole family on a plane, and we're going out to the mountains, for 5 days for Thanksgiving, and just very intentional, just them, highly focused on the family. And truly, I live life for the in-betweens too. It's great to travel and be in all of these incredible circles, but the truth is, what I really look forward to most is just that time with them. And my family's like a walking comedy show.
Yeah.
I mean, they really are.
Yeah.
When your kids grow up and become your best friends, that's the greatest gift in life.
Yeah, it's amazing. But some people aren't like that. They don't see it through the same lens. Like for me, when I come out of the elevator, my door is directly in front, and I can hear the madness. And I'm not just saying this just for the sake of it. The smile on my face when I hear the madness coming through that door, I smile without thinking I'm going to smile now.
Yeah.
I'm like, that shit is the best.
Dude, it's the best.
How could
It's
you not
soup
want
for
to
the
hear
soul.
that stuff, Even stuff like when the kids, they still come to bed sometimes at night, and my wife's like, I have such a bad sleep. I'm like, babe, very soon, they're not going to come anymore.
Yeah.
And that's going to be the last time.
And when your kids become your best friends, and when the respect lever shifts from them respecting you to you learning to respect them as an adult, it's amazing.
Yeah, you have to be like present with that. Like, I even make noise sometimes going to bed, just hoping that they'd wake up. Hoping that they'd wake up and then come to us. And I just say to my wife, I was like, I don't know what happened. Like,
that's the best, man.
He must be feeling a bit unsafe right now.
And all the pediatricians are
right?
like, don't put the kid in the crib. Don't put him in all my kids were in the bed with me. Like,
it's the best.
Yeah.
But what about, on the other side, the flip side, what about supplementation for kids?
So supplementation
Should
for
they
kids,
be supplemented?
Yeah, I do think that kids benefit from supplementation. I mean, about 46% of children have a gene mutation, and 46% of adults for that matter too, have a gene mutation called MTHFR. This is the most common gene mutation in the world. And what this gene mutation does is it impairs the ability for the body to use a compound called folic acid. Because the way the human body works is nothing that we put into our bodies. There is no vitamin, mineral, amino acid, protein, carbohydrate, nothing, mineral, nutrient of any kind that you put into the human body that is used in the format that you put it in. So everything that enters our bodies goes through this process of being converted into the usable form. I always use the analogy that we pull crude oil out of the ground, but you can't put crude oil into your gas tank, right? Because the car doesn't understand that fuel source. You've got to convert crude oil to gasoline, and that conversion process so that the body can use it is called methylation. And about 46% of children have this genetic variant where they have an impaired or fully blocked capacity to use folic acid, in some cases folate. And this doesn't sound like a big deal, right? You can't convert folic acid into the form the body uses called methylfolate. And so you have this deficiency in methylfolate. Question is, what does that cause? Well, the first thing it causes is impaired gut motility. It doesn't mess with the microbiome. It doesn't give you a food allergy. It doesn't give you a food sensitivity, but it gives you all the same symptoms of food allergy, food sensitivity, and gut microbiome disruption. And what it is an impaired capacity for the intestinal tract to move at the right pace. You see, our intestinal tract is like a 30-foot long conveyor belt. We put contents on it at one end as they exit the stomach. 30 feet later, it exits the rectum. And the speed of that conveyor belt is very important. So when we look at children, and we don't know whether or not they have this gene mutation, but they've got gut disruption. Some of these young children suffer from mild anxiety, and they have a very difficult time expressing that to their parents. You think about how complicated the emotion of anxiety is, right? The sensation of a fear without the presence of a fear. I'm not really scared, but I'm frightened.
I don't know why.
I know there's nothing to be afraid of, but I'm still afraid. These are very complicated emotions, and they're highly tied to this genetic variant. So a lot of children have an inability to process folic acid. And we think folic acid is a natural compound. It's not. You can't find folic acid anywhere on the surface of the earth. It does not exist naturally in nature. Wow. We make it in a laboratory. And we spray this on all grains, all pasta, cereals, rice, flour, grains of any kind. And this nutrient, this chemical, folic acid, which is in all fortified or enriched foods. So foods are fortified or enriched, they're sprayed with chemical folic acid. So in young children especially, it's important that if they have these kinds of behavioral cues, attention deficit disorder, which I'm not a big fan of even that diagnosis.
I did want to speak to you about that after. We'll get to that.
Oh, we'll unpack that. Yeah, I'll unpack that for your audience. Attention deficit disorder, hyperactivity disorder, poor attention span, poor focus, poor concentration, inability to follow directions and carry out complicated tasks. Very often, this is directly related to this genetic variant and directly tied to their intake of folic acid. So when you get back to the supplement question you asked, removing the folic acid from their diet and supplementing them with the kids' methylated, that term methylated is very important. Methylated multivitamin can be a game changer for them. Can restore gut motility, can stop their mind from racing at night, can stop them from laying down to go to sleep body tired, but being mind awake. It can stop them from having racing thoughts, anxiousness, anxiety. It can be such a game changer. And all it is are nutrients that have already been broken down into the form their little bodies can use. And human beings are like plants. When you deprive a human being of certain raw material, like you deprive the soil of certain nutrients, you get the expression of disease. And in human beings, we go messing around with the leaves. We're chasing autoimmune conditions, or we're chasing ADD or ADHD or OCD or depression or drug and alcohol addiction, or we're chasing all of these mood disorders, mental illnesses. And the truth is, very often, these are just nutrient deficiencies. These are missing raw material that is causing the body to behave that way. So early in childhood, I think supplementing with methylated multivitamins for young children, it's a great idea. It's very easy to do. They come in gummy formats. Kids love getting. Are
they readily available in like pharmacies and stuff, or are they specific places that you
well, they should be readily available in pharmacies. I haven't checked online here, but in the States and Europe, I mean, but in Dubai, on Noon or Deliveroo or one of those services, you should be able to get kids multivitamins. I make an adult methylated multivitamin, which I'm partial to. It took me years to formulate that. And what it does is it satisfies all the potential combinations of genetic breaks that someone could have. So if you are someone that suffers from anxiety or attention deficit disorder, or you have gut disruption, gas, bloating, diarrhea, constipation, irritability, cramping, and you haven't been able to find the food allergy or the food sensitivity, in virtually all of these cases, it is related to missing raw material. And this methylated multivitamin, puts that raw material back in the human body. You see, that's when magic happens in human beings. If you want to see real magic happen in the human body, you give it the raw material it needs to do its job, and then get out of its way. We rarely find extensions or improvement in health and well-being from chemicals, synthetics, or pharmaceuticals. We find it by giving the body the raw material it needs to do its job.
I love the way that every word you says leads me on to my next
Oh, it does?
Yeah. Because we're going to get
setting you up just perfectly
as well. But first I wanted to, okay, so let me explain my children to you so we can get into the ADHD side of this stuff. My wife, me, Zane and Noah. Zane, carbon copy of my wife. Same color skin, same huge curly hair, acts like her. is exactly same tempered, everything as her. Noah, just like me, crazy. He'll speak to anyone, very social. Will, like, if they're both standing on a giant wall, Zayn will be like, I can see the angle from there to there is 46 degrees. The wind's blowing from there. So maybe I should jump that way.
Right.
Noah will go, ah, and jump.
Yeah. Right.
And figure out what's happening because
Right.
he knows that the jump is the experience, like, and whatever happens. Like he's very, so we're getting these, I say issues, they're not issues, but the school is having issues that he doesn't focus as much.
Right.
But on the other side,
you're very surprised he doesn't complain of his tummy sometimes.
Yeah.
Too.
So he does sometimes.
Yeah.
So on one side, Noah will hear a song on the radio and 2 days later repeat the whole song word for word, lyrics, everything. He's very smart in that stuff. You can drum a beat and he'll get it automatically. He's very good with social cues. He knows if someone's upset. He knows if someone's happy. If there's a kid who's fallen down on the playground on the other side and he doesn't know them, he'll stop what he's doing to go and make sure they're okay. Zayn is like, well, he's not my friend, he's got to deal with it. Do you know what I mean? So it's not that he's lacking any of the other stuff. So when the school tells me, you know, today he said he's going to the toilet and instead of coming back, he painted all over the toilet door with soap.
Oh,
right?
God. Yeah.
So part of me is going, what are you doing, dude? It's like you had one job, go to the toilet and come back.
Right.
You know what I mean? And part of me is like, okay, but is he good to the other kids? Is he a nice friend? Is he? So on all of those is good. But then they pick these little things. Oh, he didn't focus on right. He's an 8-year-old boy.
Yeah. So let's unpack
what
that
I mean?
because there's a lot of, young parents that are probably listening to this that have the very same scenario. So first of all, attention deficit disorder is not an attention deficit at all. It's actually an attention overload disorder. It's too many windows open at the same time. So kids and adults, for that matter, that have ADD or ADHD, they don't lack the ability to pay attention. They lack the ability to pay attention to so many things. Yeah. So what happens in the human mind, all minds, is we don't just create thought. We also break thought down. And so if you don't break thought down, dismantle thought at the same way or same rate that you create it, the mind gets very clouded, which is why this is truly an attention overload disorder. The only thing they find it easy to focus on are subjects and things that they're interested in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So they don't lack the ability to pay attention. In fact, kids with ADD and adults with ADD or ADHD can actually hyper-focus.
Yeah.
They're interested in a topic, they will self-teach themselves that topic at an excruciatingly detailed level. So the question becomes not how do we speed up the central nervous system to match the pace of the mind. So modern medicine would say, okay, well, if the mind's racing, let's put amphetamines into the body.
Yeah, I'm so against all those medicines.
To race the central nervous system to match the pace of the mind. So this is Vyvanse, Ritalin, Adderall, these are amphetamines. And so that's taking the system that's not broken, the central nervous system, and breaking it to match the system that is. So I always say, if you're going to use that solution, next time you get a flat tire, just get out of your car and slash your other three tires, right? So this will create equilibrium. So the question becomes, how do we quiet the mind? Because there are a lot of characteristics that are going on in the body for kids and adults that have attention deficit disorder. It's very rare to see a kid with ADD or ADHD that doesn't have intermittent gut issues, either gas or bloating or constipation or diarrhea or irritability, sometimes bloating, sometimes cramping. They're not as regular as other kids. As adults, they're not that regular either, meaning they don't have bowel movements as frequently. And they also have the same bedtime scenario where they lay down to go to sleep at night, and as their environment quiets, their mind wakes up.
That's exactly it. And with me too. So again, my wife, the second her head hits the pillow, she's out.
Yes.
Like to the point that I've said, hey, listen, you're joking, right? Because we're in the middle of a conversation. Like we're in the middle of a sentence. You can't be like, I've literally begun, you can't be asleep. Hello.
Yeah.
And she's fast asleep.
Right.
Zayn is the same. With me, I'll go to, even if I'm super tired, the laptop's next to the bed and I'm like, I need to watch 15 episodes of Family Guy. Right. Noah's the same. Even though he's yawning, he'll go to bed and then he's just like beatboxing.
So how do we quiet the mind? So to even take it a step deeper, what is causing the mind to be active? So neurotransmitters, which they form the base of all mood. They form the basis of all emotional states. They drive our behavior. Serotonin, for example, main driver of mood and of emotion. Dopamine, the main driver of behavior. These are neurotransmitters that are actually manufactured. They're made in our gut. In fact, 90% of the serotonin in your body is right here in your gut. So if you don't have it here, you can't have it here. So the question becomes, how do we break down the neurotransmitters of thought? Like, how do we keep them from accumulating at the rate that they're accumulating, the rate at which they're accumulating? These neurotransmitters, a specific class of neurotransmitters, are called catecholamines. They're the 4 neurotransmitters that are involved in fight or flight. So when they rise from a 0 to a 2, you feel mild bit of anxiousness. You're hyper aware. Your thoughts are clicking, you're thinking. As they go from a 2 to like a 5, you can actually feel mild anxiety. You can feel the presence of a fear without the presence of a fear. As they go from a 5 to a 7 or an 8, you can have a full-blown panic attack without the presence of a fear. And if they rise higher, you can actually even have paranoias. So in kids that have dysregulated ability to break these neurotransmitters down, it is critically important to get folic acid out of their diet. You want to see a different child in the house in 7 days, you get the folic acid out of their diet. So you get rid of all of the fortified or enriched foods. Now, they can have grains, they can have pasta, they can have white flour, rice, they can even have cereals as long as they're organic and they're not fortified or enriched. That's a critical term to look for. The second one is to supplement them with a methylated multivitamin. Same for adults. You want to see ADHD stop dead in its tracks. You want to put anxiety permanently into the rearview mirror. You start supplementing with a methylated multivitamin. And what this will do is it will actually provide your body with a specific set of B vitamins: pyridoxine, riboflavin, thiamine, niacin, pantothenic acid. These B vitamins, those are just fancy names for B vitamins. You take a very specific form of B12 called methylcobalamin, and you take a very specific form of folate called methylfolate. Because just like we believe that the vast majority of disease is genetically inherited, which is patently false, because diseases travel in families does not mean they're genetically inherited. It means that they are familial. And what that means is that certain nutrient deficiencies are passed on our genome.
They didn't break the cycle as well, the parents, when they were feeding their children.
And you can supplement for these deficiencies. In fact, I tell all adults and kids to start at the same place. There is one test you can do once in your lifetime. It's called a genetic methylation test. And this test, it's a cheek swab. You take a cheek swab.
It's the one with the 5 markers, right?
There's usually between 5 and 12. I have one with 5. I have one that goes all the way to 12 markers. Now, there are 1.3 million genes in the genome. I only care about 12 of them. The reason why I care about these specific genes is because these genes are actionable. If they're broken, you can supplement for their deficiency. The vast majority of people right now are supplementing for the sake of supplementing. They're not supplementing for deficiency. I always use the plant example that if you had a leaf rotting in a palm tree and you called a true arborist, a true botanist out to look at that leaf, they wouldn't even touch the leaf.
They're going to go to the soil.
They're going to go to the soil. And they're going to say, you know what? There's no nitrogen in this soil. And they're going to add nitrogen and the leaf is going to heal. And human beings are no different. When you deprive the body of certain raw material, you get this expression of misbehavior. Now, it might be ADD or ADHD or anxiety or anxiousness or mild depression or what we would call a mood disorder or a mental illness, which I don't believe that they are. They're definitely not. And these are not consequences of the presence of pathology or something else. They are the consequences of missing raw material. As soon as you added nitrogen to the soil, the leaf healed. As soon as you add certain methylated nutrients, the human body heals. And this is very true in kids. Kids can do this test as soon as they can chew and swallow. So supplementing kids with minerals, there are mineral salts that I love, like a Baja Gold sea salt. This is like a $15 bag of this salt will last you probably 5 years. You can get in a mineral drop or two. When we become mineral deficient, amino acid deficient, nutrient deficient, the body starts misbehaving. And this has everything to do with how well our intestinal tract moves. So all the consequences of bowel disruption. This has to do with our behavior because it's how we make neurotransmitters. So it has to do with our mood. It has to do with our emotional state. So in children specifically, because you asked, I would really, if you have any of these things going on, you want to see a different child in the house. Pause the folic acid, fortified or enriched foods for 7 days, add in a methylated multivitamin. And in 7 days, I promise you, it will not be a full contact sport to get that kid in the car to go to school.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah, that's incredible. So, something I find really interesting. When you were working in insurance, actually, this is going to be a 9-part question.
Yeah.
Right?
9-part question.
Yeah, right? So, were you healthy then?
No.
No. So
No.
you weren't.
I had all the data and I didn't act on it.
Right.
Like
Very
most people.
right? Very interesting. And your job was to predict when people were going to die.
So if we got 10 years of medical records on you and 10 years of demographic data, the teams that I was associated with could predict your life expectancy to the month with an extraordinary level of accuracy. In fact, so much so that institutions would take multi-million-dollar, $10 million, $25 million, $50 million risks on just that piece of data. Think about what a life insurance company does when they put a $25 million life insurance policy on your life. Only one thing matters.
Yeah.
How long are they going to collect that premium?
Yeah.
If they, in the US, we have financial services instruments called annuities. So a single premium immediate annuity, for example, is where you write a check to the insurance company. Let's say you write them a $1 million check. They guarantee you an income stream for life.
Yeah.
What do you think they're basing that income stream on? How many more months you have left on earth?
Wow.
Now, if you live too long, that's bad for them. If you die too early, they keep your money earlier than you might think. So they're very, very good at predicting death. In fact, there's an entire financial services industry built around mortality. And insurance companies modify their pricing. It's called table rating, where they, you're either a super preferred, you're going to live forever, preferred, a standard, you're table rated. And these ratings are based on your demographic and your medical data. But they have data that no other enterprise has. They know the day, the date, the time, the location, and the cause of death for hundreds of millions of lives. And so when you triangulate that back into the record, you get a very accurate picture of, well, what happens to people that have elevated LDL cholesterol? Well, if they have low triglycerides and high LDL cholesterol, you extend their life. Modern medicine would say you put them on a statin. What happens to people that have healthy levels of vitamin D3 between 60 to 80 nanograms per deciliter? Well, they don't get sick. They live a long time. They don't get brittle bone disease. They have considerably less frequent rates of breast cancer in women, less frequent rates of colorectal cancer in the entire population. And they have longer all-cause mortality. They have improved immune systems. So we can trace certain nutrients back to the expression of either longevity or pathology and disease. Wow. And this is why I think modern medicine sometimes will fail us in diagnosing conditions on people that truly have nutrient deficiencies.
Okay, these two people, the pre-Gary and this Gary now, I'm guessing, only you can tell me, that's not because it's such a contrary mindset to
Very
how
much
you
so.
are now. It can't have been a great place mentally to know what you were doing. Essentially, you were kind of helping
everything.
The insurance companies make money on the backs of people's lives dying that you knew.
Yeah, and I was very good at it. Yeah, and I was also just a very different person. Very, very self-centered, very, very narcissistic. I wasn't a particularly good partner to people that were partners of mine during that era of my life. So apologize to you guys. And I cared about money and wealth, cared deeply about material things. I wanted to be as wealthy as I could because I thought that would raise my socioeconomic status. It would improve my self-image. None of that worked. I owned a nightclub and went through a party phase for a while. I destroyed a lot of relationships and business relationships. I lost a marriage. I filed bankruptcy. And until I really woke up and admitted that these were not things that were happening to me, and these were things that were designed by me. And I wasn't a very spiritual person. I was raised Roman Catholic, so I didn't have a lot of identity with the church. When I was younger, it was very ritualistic to me. My dad woke me up. I put a suit on. I went to Our Lady of Sorrows Catholic Church. I stood up, I sat down and kneeled. I said, peace be with you. They said, peace be with you. I went up and got community. I was like, I'm starving that little bit of communion. Didn't do anything. But it wasn't until I had an epiphany about what I really wanted to do with the rest of my life.
Do you remember that exact moment? Was it over a longer period of time, or was there a eureka moment?
There was a very specific moment. You see, in the industry that I was in, I was not allowed to have any contact with the patient. I was not allowed to have any contact with the treating physician. It was a very specific case where I saw in the medical record a life-threatening drug interaction.
Wow.
And I knew that this person was... because you can see it when you get the full medical record, you see everything, right? I mean, when you apply for a life insurance policy, this is a very, you're butt naked under a bright light. Yeah. It's a very in-depth scope. You see their bank accounts, brokerage accounts, trust and estate documents. You see their divorce decrees. You see their financial statuses, the companies they own, and you see all of their medical records. So it's a very 360 view into somebody's life, and when you have that much information, very often you see medical misdiagnosis. Well, you're not a physician. Who are you to jump in and say that this shouldn't be happening? I was reading medical records vast majority of my time for a living. I was an expert witness in federal court for litigation related to our space. That actually brought me into a lot of litigation. And it was just a very dark kind of, I didn't realize it at the time, but it was a very, very kind of dark sort of time in my life. And when I realized that this woman had a contraindicated script and there was something that I could have done, but I was prohibited from doing it, it sort of reminded me of sitting behind a thick glass window and just watching blind people walk into traffic. And I had an epiphany and I said, what am I doing? Why am I going to spend the rest of my life predicting death when I have so much information on how to help people live healthier, happier, longer, more fulfilling lives? But it had to start with me. And I picked up competitive triathlons. I put the booze down and I picked up competitive triathlons. I dissociated with about 85% of my friend circle. I recommitted myself to my family. Started staying home more often. I started being a lot more present as a father. I started spending more time with my kids. I started spending more alone time with each of my kids. I started something called date night with my daughter. Who at the time was very young. I started boys' night out with each of my sons differently. And I reconnected with my faith. And I think that having faith, and I'm not making an argument for a particular faith. I'm a non-denominational Christian, but if you're a Muslim, if you're a Jew, if you're Buddhist, having faith and resubscribing to the fact that there's a higher power, being humble before that higher power, dropping to your knees in prayer and thanks and gratitude, those were cataclysmic spiritual shifts in my life. And I also took radical responsibility for exactly where I was in my life, which is a very hard thing to do. You want to talk about a sobering moment is when you begin to take responsibility for your own actions. And a lot of us don't do it until till it's too late. And, by the grace of God, I now, it's interesting. I always wanted to be wealthy, but it wasn't until I stopped caring about being wealthy and I started caring about other people's well-being that I became wealthy. And now my pursuit is not wealth, it's impact. But
even now the money is different money, right?
It's such different money.
It tastes different. It's like, it's not the same. Like when you make that money that way, it's like,
I don't dress like it, act like it. I don't have fancy
mean?
cars. I don't, I have nice cars. I don't have fancy cars. I don't, I don't measure my success or my happiness or my socioeconomic status by how much money I have. That's a losing game because there's levels to that game and you never reach the top.
100%. I mean, look at Dubai alone.
Oh yeah.
You can come here and think that you've got money
here.
And somebody be like, oh, my friend, you came in your Bugatti.
Oh, I remember my first billion. I was so excited, like a little child.
My 5-year-old son's Bugatti,
Yeah.
Yeah. So how do you disassociate? Because, okay, every good human being, especially one who is God-fearing,
Mm-hmm.
whenever you've done something in the past that is, especially now, out of character,
Mm-hmm. Oh,
how
very
do
out
you
of character.
disassociate with those memories of, because we have feelings, right? And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes that feeling of, I guess it could be shame,
Mm-hmm. There's a
comes
lot
up.
of guilt. There's a
Like,
lot of shame.
how do you disassociate with that or deal with that now
Th-
without it kind of crippling your progression spiritually? And
You know, that's what the power of forgiveness is all about. You know, the ability not just to forgive others, but to forgive yourself. But it begins by really taking responsibility. And that's a very difficult thing to do, especially for men.
Mm.
It's difficult for us to feel vulnerable enough and be truthful and intentional enough with ourselves that we can say, I'm exactly where I am because of the sum of the choices that I've made. My boss didn't screw me. My partner didn't, take from me.
Yeah.
My wife didn't ruin my life. My friends didn't ruin my life. I haven't been shortchanged. I have made a sequence of choices that have brought me right here to this moment. And the only thing that's going to change my current status is to make different choices. And what's amazing is there's an entirely different world on the other side of that.
Yeah.
Deep, meaningful relationships centered around monogamy. There's, committing to your faith unabashedly, not apologizing for it, but wearing it on your sleeve. Really reconnecting with the human beings in your life and understanding that connection is medicine. Your community is your family, your first community. And
that's why people die when they lose their spouse.
that's called broken heart syndrome.
Yeah,
And I studied
they have
that.
nothing. Yeah, they have nothing kind of left. They're like, well, that was my why, and now it's nothing. And people who retire very, very early as well. It's like you can retire,
Mm-hmm.
but have something that you
Yes.
do that keeps you going, right? Because
Yes.
otherwise, you're just like,
There's a term for that.
I'm just.
There's a single word for that, and it's called isolation. And isolation is the most damaging thing that you can do to human physiology. We knew in the mortality space that if you wanted to cut a human being's life expectancy in half, and I mean in half, at any age, you put them in isolation.
Wow.
So what happens in broken heart syndrome? Why, after being married for 30 or 40 or 50 years, when one spouse passes away, does the other spouse go shortly thereafter? Well, it's not really the broken heart. It's the immediate isolation. It's the first time that they've been isolated, maybe in their adult lifetime. And for most of us, we're isolated in plain sight. We've forgotten that connection is medicine, that faith is medicine, that community is medicine. If you look at Blue Zone studies, for example, those were non-exchangeables. There were no such thing as assisted care living facilities. Mom and dad moved back in with the kids until the day that they died. Maybe their only role was to go out and get vegetables at night for the meal that night. But they had a purpose and they had a community and they felt connection. And we're the most isolated we've ever been in human history because we believe that this comes through our social media channels. We believe that it comes through our digital devices. And there's nothing that I enjoy more if you've ever seen me in an environment where I've done a stage talk or a lecture or I've spoken with a crowd. One of my favorite things is after the talk is done, I go down into the audience and I'm very intentional with them. I'm very present. I look those people in the eye. I want them to feel my presence, that I'm paying attention. I don't have my phone on me. I don't do that when I'm around with my kids either. And I'm telling you, there is a layer of happiness that I did not think would be possible. I sleep like a bear now. I'm so like madly in love with my wife. I'm like a little child. My kids have become my best friends. It's drawn them in closer to our family. We built a big, beautiful, impactful business together. And, I've learned now that the only selfish time I have in my life is that first 90 minutes of the day that I give just to myself. And then I give the balance of my day away. And so striking that balance between self-care and service has been the greast discovery, if you will, of my adult lifetime. When I pray in the morning, I just pray to keep things the same. I don't ask for anything.
100%.
I used to be like Santa Claus. I'm like, hey, God, if you're listening, here's what I need, right?
100%. No, but like essentially you're writing the story that you would like to read as opposed to just being a character in a story that you have no control over, right?
Right.
When I'm sorry that I don't come to the studio as often, because I know through that whole isolation thing, because he always messages me and he's like, I'm so bored.
I'm so
I'm
bored.
getting depressed. There's nothing going on here.
I need
like,
you, brother.
it's just me and the computer. And I'm just like, dude, just man up. Yeah, it's him. He's got a skeleton here. I don't know if you've seen Trevor the skeleton.
Oh, I see
We
him.
got him just so he's not alone here in the studio when I'm not about. Like, do you know what I mean? But it's, yeah, I guess you don't kind of think about that stuff of how kind of draining it can be. And the funniest thing is when you were talking about the phones and stuff, I think it's even worse because it's tricking you into thinking that you're not isolated, but you're getting all the benefits of isolation while you're scrolling and stuff, and then it goes, and then you're like,
time goes by like that. You've essentially just wasted 20 minutes, 40 minutes, 60 minutes, several hours.
Yeah.
The amount of time that we spend doom scrolling is mind numbing. And that's by design. These phones are designed to be addictive, ding the dopamine receptor, give you a dopamine reward for actually investigating it. So, you know, I don't fault people for being addicted to their phones or social media, but the truth is that true connection comes from connecting with other human beings. Yeah. And when you look at, you know, great trends of that were centered around connection, like CrossFit, you know, when CrossFit
community,
first took off,
camaraderie,
it just exploded. Yeah. Why? Because it was like a group exercise class combined with people doing really, really, really hard things that they wanted to quit, but they didn't because somebody was right beside them. And then mastering that together, and then boom, you know, having this sense of community, and that could give you hundreds of other examples. But faith does the same thing.
Yeah, it's the same thing with jiu-jitsu as well. When you're trying to explain to someone how much fun it is rolling around for an hour with people who are trying to stop you from breathing.
Yeah,
like the people don't understand that, but you don't understand. It's like you can't explain it. It's weird. Yes, he's trying to kill me, but
I'm also trying to kill him.
I'm trying to kill him, and it's all love. Do you know what I mean? And it's a very strange thing.
Yeah.
Part 9 of the 9-part question. Since, and this is a bit of a funny one, since you were predicting deaths and all that, did you ever throw your numbers in?
No. I was very good at what I did.
Isn't that something that you could kind of like, I could literally predict my
I probably
own
would do it
death to the
now.
month.
But you know, I always thought of that like Tom Hanks movie where he's like crossing off the things on the calendar. And that would stress me out. And I've only done it once since I left that career, and I did it for Dana White because he insisted on me doing it. And he had 10.4 years to live, and that extended by another 37 years after we started working together. But I didn't do that for the reason, and once I put that pen down, I never picked that pen up again.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm grateful for that period of my life, because without that perspective, I wouldn't realize how good I have it now, and I might not be as grateful for the way things are now.
Yeah, but essentially, why you left that job, you actually were able to do for yourself, because like you said, you were out of shape, you were mentally out of shape, you were spiritually out of shape.
Oh yeah. People that knew me 15 years ago, like, you look 15 years younger than you are now. And I truly am younger.
Yeah, you helped yourself. And now you've extended your own timeline.
No question.
Because of the changes that you made.
Yeah, no question. And now I really like treating my body well.
Yeah.
It's not a difficult decision. I don't drink, but I don't pass judgment on people that do drink. I used to drink a lot. I used to really enjoy drinking. Now I don't. And I also know about the damage it causes to the body. I'm very kind to myself, you know, in terms of how I prioritize sleep. I schedule meetings and travel around sleep and exercise. I find that the more you engage in self-care, the more you can be selfless with the rest of your time. And I think a lot of people miss this. You know, this is very true in women as a class. You know, women have a tendency to develop something called caregiver syndrome, which is where they constantly putting the needs of other people before the needs of themselves.
And in relationships, I'm going to fix him.
Yeah, I'm going to fix him. Yeah. I got to get to work on this. And, you know, this is why 82% of all autoimmune disease is found in women. It's not because autoimmune disease selects females. It's because they have a tendency to be more selfless. They give a lot of themselves. Kids, family, spouse, significant other, their work, their career, their girlfriends. And the next thing you know, they put themselves in the back seat, of the bus. So they're falling out the back of the bus.
And then it's too late.
Yeah.
Okay. Social media. How, and this is for the viewers, and I even find it difficult. How do people differentiate which advice to listen to in a world full of, like an example, I got a message the other day, because I always get people who want to come on the podcast, so their team DMs me or they DM me. a DM and, hey, you know, I'm a well-known life coach. I want to come on the podcast. I'm like, great, another life coach.
Right, right.
Because I always
Whose
check out
life is a mess. Right?
I checked out their profile.
Yeah.
First thing I saw was 21 years old. And I'm thinking, mate, what life have you lived? My son is older than you.
Yeah.
What life have you lived to say you're a life coach?
Right.
You've literally
You're
farted.
just getting going.
Like, you're
Yeah.
like not even a third or a quarter of the way through.
Mhm.
And yet you want to say, I'm a life coach. And so many people on social media are just portraying this kind of, I
Mhm.
have all the answers
Mhm.
and don't have the experience to back it.
Mhm.
They might have watched a couple of Gary Brecka YouTube videos and been like,
Mhm.
this seems cool. He's in good shape. Or on the flip side, especially from the personal training industry, someone who's done a cycle,
Mhm.
got shredded, has no idea how to train the Gen Pop,
Right.
and is giving advice to everyone, and people are paying them money and not seeing any changes.
Yeah.
So how do people kind of figure out which advice to take? Because also advice always, the white papers and everything change every 3 years. Oh no,
Yes.
we were wrong about that.
Right.
Apparently broccoli's really bad for you. But for the last 40 years, it's been the only thing you should eat. Do you know what I mean? So how
And
do
I'll
you,
cut through all that noise
Yeah.
too. I mean, first, I think that you should curate your social media by, I don't think that we should use social media to entertain us. I think we should use it to serve us. And if you use it for entertainment, this is where you go down the wrong rabbit hole, because it offers an endless amount of entertainment, right? I mean, if you're into fighting, you can just watch the knockouts from every different type of fight sport until you're blue in the face. If you're into snowboarding, you can watch every triple double backflip. And essentially what it does is it creates this dissociation, because you're not connected to any of these things. You're not an elite fighter. You're not an elite skateboarder. You're not in elite shape. You're not elite maybe in terms of how wealthy you are. You don't drive the right car. You don't travel to the right places. So entertainment from social media, I think, is very dangerous. When you go to social media and you curate it by what serves your interest, you can very quickly, I think that we're getting more and more capable of discerning the authenticity or the lack thereof in people. I was a very inauthentic person for a long period of my life. And this is why I attracted other inauthentic people. In fact, if you look at the Spain scale of emotion, authenticity is the most attractive frequency to leave a human being's body. And that's not voodoo. And that's not like woo-woo science. It's not hippie shit, as Dana White would say. It's very real science. And so what happens is, as you become more of an authentic person, you become more capable of finding other authentic people. And what happens is your sphere begins to fill with like-minded people. And the more like-minded people you have around you, the more elevated you are spiritually, emotionally, as a human. So I think like a life coach to me is, how do I cope with the shitstorm that I've been given, instead of how do I guide my way out of this, right? And in order to do that, it has to start with you. No one can build you into the person that you're meant to become other than yourself.
It's more adaptation.
It's by adaptation.
Yeah.
And you know what's fascinating is, on my podcast, and I interview some of the leading MDs, PhDs, researchers, biohackers in the world, people that are really moving the needle. There's a common theme between the most passionate, purpose-driven people in the world and the most impactful. All of them, almost without exception, solved a major problem in their life. Maybe it was drug and alcohol addiction. Maybe it was a bad relationship. Maybe it was a horrible physique. They were grossly overweight. They were sick of being teased. They were trapped in their own body. Maybe it was Lyme disease, but they solved it. They became a citizen scientist and they solved it on their own. So their pain became their purpose. I wear pearls, which is kind of silly for a guy, but I wear them because it reminds me that when God made the oyster, he made the oyster to filter water. And so an average oyster will filter 150 gallons of water a day.
Wow.
And in an oyster bed with 150,000 oysters, once in a great while, a grain of sand will get stuck in one of those oysters. And what happens is these oysters actually have a little rudimentary nervous system. And the sand grain causes this oyster immense pain. It's actually very painful. They
really?
writhe in pain. And so they secrete a compound called nectar. which is a pearl, and to surround this pain. And long after that oyster is gone, right, this pearl is still out in the world. It's considered one of the most precious gemstones. It's the only living gemstone. And it's the only gemstone that's formed from pain, not from pressure. Wow. And there's a lot of metaphors in that, because very often you can find your purpose in your pain. And some of the most passionate, impactful, driven, I'm getting goosebumps literally just telling you this, people that I've sat across from, that I've been impacted by, influenced by, and really start a podcast. And by the time I end, I'm like, wow, you're a really special human. I had a young girl on not too long ago that Leanna Deeb, I don't know if you know her. No. She was a fitness influencer, and she decided to recommit to her faith. And she's began reading the Quran. And she bared a lot of skin as a fitness influencer, and then decided that she was going to scrap all that and cover up and be conservative. And it wasn't a thing to grab attention. It was just saying, I'm going to do this to be authentic to myself. You know, I'm doing this for me. And this is my identity. And she went from 2 million followers to 18 million followers. Wow. She got a multi-million-dollar deal with Gymshark to create a woman's modesty line by doing something only for her. And I think a lot of women are positively influenced by this, because they're going, wow, I might not choose the same identity that you did,
but the authenticity
but
again.
I wish I had the balls to be that authentic. And so now I seem like I'm surrounded by a lot more intentional, authentic people. The depth, the caliber of the conversations I've had in the last 10 years rivals anything that I used to talk about. The sort of feeling of connection that I have to not just the community that I serve, but the community that is now in my inner circle, including my kids, it's so much more deep and meaningful. I'm so glad that I put myself through that.
100%. You know? We have a saying, it's an old Islamic Arab saying that, show me 5 of your friends and I'll tell you who you are. I don't even need to meet you. Just let me meet those 5 and I'll tell you exactly who you are, kind of thing. And I don't think people understand the importance of that immediate circle that you surround yourself with, which is incredible. Yo guys, so everybody knows there's 2 days in a boat captain's life that are the best days ever. The day you buy the boat and the day you finally sail the boat. After fixing it, after doing all the maintenance, after scrubbing all those little barnacles off the bottom, it's a headache. But that's where the Captain's Club comes in. So they started this really cool club. All you do, you sign up for the year as a member, you call them up, you go on the app, you tell them I'm coming, the boat's ready, it's filled with petrol, you take all your friends out, you go out, have a laugh and come back. You don't have to worry about all of that monotonous stuff that comes with owning a boat. So, guys, if you want to pretend you've got a boat when you don't have a boat, but still have a boat, call the Captain's Club. Do you believe, and this is a subject that people will say it's hippie shit, that people can heal themselves from all diseases without medication? Like I'm talking about through fasting, through these kind of things.
There is no question that you can do that. You know, what's interesting about all of the leading research in longevity, aging, biooptimization, anti-aging, whatever you want to call it, is that it's now coming full circle, right? We are realizing, and we have the data to prove this, we are realizing that the 3 fundamental non-exchangeables in a healthy, happy, long life are sleep, a whole food diet, and mobility into later in life. The next layer of that is non-exchangeable is sense of community and connection. There are not people that are living long, healthy lives, happy lives, that feel isolated. And this is true in the blue zones. There wasn't a single blue zone around the world where there was not a strong sense of community and purpose. I liken that also to faith. There was not a single blue zone where mobility into later in life was not a core non-exchangeable component. And there was no continuity between diets. So it wasn't carnivore, wasn't keto, wasn't paleo, wasn't pescatarian, wasn't vegan, wasn't vegetarian, wasn't raw food. It was the absence of processed foods. So we know that those are the fundamental basics, right? You can't sleep your way around a poor diet, you can't diet your way around poor sleep, and you can't exercise your way around either. So when people ask me about starting their journey, I say, until you've mastered those 3 things, nothing else matters. And then we know that supplementing for deficiency is where the journey should begin. That's why I believe every person once in their lifetime should do a genetic methylation test. Put the cheek swab in your mouth, send it to a lab. You'll never repeat that test, and you will stop supplementing for the sake of supplementing, and you will start for the first time maybe in your life supplementing for deficiency. This is when magic happens in the human body. And if you keep carrying this further, we realize that there's about 32 trillion cells in the body. Every day that you're alive, 300 billion of those cells will turn over. So 300 billion cells that you woke up with yesterday will not be with you today. 300 billion cells from today will not be with you tomorrow. What this means is that about every 84 days, nearly all of the live cellular structures in your body turn over. So if I met you 84 days from today, you would be a completely different cellular human being. So why is it that we don't believe that we can heal from just about anything that faces us if I'm turning over all those cells every 84 days? So the question is, what frequency am I sending those cells? And frequency matters. What nutrition am I sending those cells? How am I bathing those cells? Am I bathing my cellular biology in a toxic soup? Or am I giving those cells real nutrition? And this is where not only true healing, but true life expectancy happens. We also know true life extension happens. We also know that the most powerful thing inside the walls of every human being is our God-given innate immune system. And not because it just protects us from the outside world, but because it polices our inside world. You know, when we're in our younger years, age 13 and lower, the vast majority of the time, the immune system is actually not protecting you. It is policing you. So it's looking for cells that can no longer perform their function. And it's breaking those up and turning them into energy. These are called senescent cells. It's looking for white blood cells that can't mount an immune defense, platelets can't carry growth factors, red blood cells that can't carry oxygen. It's breaking those apart and it's replacing them with healthy, young, fresh cells that can perform their job. As we age, which is the theory of immunofatigue, we slowly and progressively overwhelm the immune system to the point where it's no longer protecting us because no longer policing us because it's too busy protecting us. And so the more garbage we put into the body, more highly processed foods, the more environmental toxins, the more toxic relationships we have, the more our self-image is degraded, the less we sleep, the less whole food we put into our body, the more the immune system job shifts from keeping order internally to protecting you externally. And this is where disease and pathology set in. I mean, if you look at cancer, for example, all cancer, regardless of its form or its origin, was at one time a healthy cell. So cancer is not something that happens to us.
Because everybody has cancer, right?
Everybody either has or has had cancer. And by meaning has had cancer, you've had a circulating tumor cell, cancer at stage 0 at some point. Your immune system just took it out. It's a walk in the park for most of our immune system. In fact, if you look at the DNA inside of every human being, only 60% of our DNA, and everybody listening to this podcast, is human. 40% of all the DNA in our body is viral. So 40% of every DNA strand is viral. And that's how I know that you're 40 years old, but I can see that you had mono when you were in 8th grade. It's still a part of your DNA. You got mono as a child and it came back as Epstein-Barr as an adult. You got chickenpox as a child, it came back as shingles as an adult. You didn't catch those conditions. You've always had them. Every cell that is metabolically healthy has the capacity to shift and become metabolically sick. That's what we call cancer.
Just waiting for you to leave the window open.
They're just waiting for you to stop paying attention to it.
Yeah.
And then we're surprised. Like, I live a really healthy life. Okay, how often were you sleeping? Were meetings and travel more important than sleep and exercise? Okay, you weren't living a healthy life. One of the greatest shifts I made in my entire adult lifetime was 6 years ago. I came to a hard stop and I said, all of my meetings and travel are now going to be scheduled around sleep and exercise. Stop taking red eyes. I don't take early morning flights. I do travel a lot. I don't take speaking engagements early in the morning. I don't take dinners late at night. And that seems very restrictive. One of the best things, one of the most liberating things I've ever done.
Wow.
And it's impacted me in ways I never thought possible. I mean, I feel better and I have not a single, knock on wood, ache or pain in my body. I exercise for longevity now, not to impress anybody. And I feel the best, the cleanest, clearest, awakest, sharpest, most connected I've ever been. And this is how you set your body up for a long, healthy, happy life. Also, our belief system drives a lot of what goes on in our immune system. Our immune system responds to things like chronic stress, trauma, toxic relationships. The immune system, the nervous system exists in these two states, the autonomic nervous system, parasympathetic state and a sympathetic state. And a sympathetic state is a state of fight or flight. Parasympathetic state is one of rest and digest. You can only heal when your body feels safe. Again, when women don't feel safe in their bodies, 82% of them, 82% of all autoimmune disease affects those women. And when you feel safe in your body, when the Bible says that I read says that so a man thinketh he shall become. And what this means is not that you create your own reality, but what you believe influences not just your internal environment and your external environment, but directly influences your immune system. And there are studies that show that people that have been given terminal diagnoses
that have cured themselves,
that have cured themselves, people have been given terminal diagnoses incorrectly, that didn't actually have the diagnosis the doctor said they had, and they died of what the doctor incorrectly diagnosed them of. This is the absolute power of the mind. And so
it's incredible.
Yeah, we're so multifactorial. And I think that a lot of times we don't put the level of emphasis on faith, community, connection. That is truly medicine. Whole foods are medicine, right? Mobility is medicine. And so when you look historically at people that have conquered some of the most debilitating diseases in the world, and I've been on a lot of these journeys with people, a lot of what it is just accepting that you actually can heal. I mean, the body is such a, the most advanced technology that we have for life extension, stem cells, exosomes, natural killer cell treatments, blood filtration, red light therapy, cold plunging, sauna. All these are doing is harnessing the body's ability to do its own job. So you clean your blood, you boost the immune system. You apply hormetic stress, the body strengthens. So cold plunging does. Why does sauna decrease all-cause mortality? Because it helps you eliminate waste. Not just heating you up, it's helping you eliminate waste. It's flooding you with heat shock proteins. It's making you more resilient. It's a hormetic stress that causes the body to strengthen. And so I think we're really beginning now to look at the best of what modern science has to offer and realizing that the best of what modern science has to offer is getting us back to the basics.
Yeah, it's incredible. What sleep thing though? I know you're quite tight for time, so just 2 more hours and we'll be done.
Okay. I got time.
I know it's good to sleep. And don't have a go at me, Gary.
I won't.
But if I sleep more than 4 to 6 hours a night, I feel like shit. And I heard that there is a gene out there in a very small percentage of people
very small.
That they don't need sleep as much as other people. Honestly, if I have 8 hours sleep, I feel like I've been on a 5-day bender drinking alcohol, and I don't even drink alcohol. I'm just assuming that's what it's like.
Well,
you know what I mean?
What's more important?
I can't sleep like that.
Yeah. So what's more important is to look at the quality of your sleep, right? I mean, everybody knows that sleep is important, but why? What is it that's happening during sleep that's so,
if you're in REM
so
or
critical?
If you're not,
REM, deep sleep. REM sleep is where we assemble memory, learn memory. So our learned tasks from the day, like your recollection of this podcast. Tonight, if you get good REM sleep, it will assemble into a learned memory. You can be driving down the road 5 months from now and be like, oh yeah, that's what Gary talked about.
I'm going to be doing that anyways. Very, very good podcast, Gary. I'm still going to be doing it.
Thank you, man. During deep phases of sleep, something really magical happens, and we activate an area of the brain called the glymphatic system. We have lymphatics in our body, which drain waste from the body. We all know about the lymphatic system because of our lymph nodes that get swollen during, when you have a sore throat. And the lymphatic system eliminates waste from the body. The glymphatic system, which is primarily active during deep sleep, is active eliminating waste and repairing and detoxifying, regenerating during deep sleep. So that's why these phases of sleep are so important. And it's also why you feel foggy if you haven't gotten good sleep. Now, maybe you are the rare genetic predisposition for
honestly, I'll have, so there's nights, and I'm not ashamed to say this, but there's nights where I'll sleep at 2 a.m. and I do the school run in the morning. So I'm up at 7. When I'm getting up, I won't hear the alarm. Don't get me wrong. When I sleep deep. I have to be woken up. But the second my feet touch the ground, I'm good to go. I'm ready to go. Like super energized. I drop the kids to school and it's straight to the gym after that. And I'll do my training. Even the ice plunge, I got one on my balcony now because I had to.
That's
get one.
awesome.
I did a nice little sponsorship with a with a run.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I just don't need more. But now I see what she's doing with her lymphatic system. She's getting that
Lymphatic
deep
system.
sleep. That's
She's
what's
getting that
happening with
good
her.
deep sleep.
Yeah, like she can sleep for like 11 hours.
Wow.
Like it's insane.
Yeah.
And get up normal.
Feel
But
great.
for me, if it goes past that 6 hours, I just don't feel good. One thing I want to touch on, TRT,
Yes.
peptides. I just started
Huge fan of
TRT. I mean, I'm taking a month off now, but I did a first 8 weeks. And I'm doing it with a professional and everything.
Great.
They come to the house, they do all the bloods, they check everything.
Good to hear that.
And it's physiological dosages, is why I'm
Good.
very small. And I don't look like a bodybuilder. How important is that at the age, once you get to the 40s
It
and
can
stuff
be
to do it?
one of the most critical things you can do, especially for women. So many women are suffering unnecessarily because they think that hormone replacement therapy is, a predisposition for breast cancer, or that it increases their risk of breast cancer. That's patently false. In fact, the
You're worried
U.S.
about the thyroid a lot all the time.
Yeah.
I hear that a lot.
Yeah, the U.S. FDA, there's no correlation between thyroid disease and hormone replacement therapy. None. The Women's Health Initiative, which was one of the biggest hormone studies ever done, was incorrectly publicized for demonstrating a correlated risk between, or causal risk between, hormone replacement therapy and breast cancer. And this caused 50 plus million women to suffer over decades, completely unnecessarily, because hormone replacement therapy can be one of the most beneficial things for women, especially late 30s all the way through menopause. And, in fact, the US FDA just removed last week. I went back to Washington, D.C. from Dubai, flew all the way to Washington for this MAHA summit. And Marty McCary, the head of our FDA, and Bobby Kennedy and J.D. Vance, our vice president, head of National Institute of Health, they were all there. I was on a panel with Dana, and essentially the US FDA removed the black box warning that says that hormone replacement therapy was linked to breast cancer. In 2018, the American Journal of Urology, if you want to look it up, just Google American Journal of Urology space testosterone, updated all of their clinical guidelines for male hormone replacement therapy. And if you scroll down to section 13 and you start reading under practitioner guidelines, you can actually read their guidance for physicians on what a physician should say to a hormone deficient male, someone who is deficient in testosterone. And I'll quote a couple of them. There is no evidence that hormone replacement therapy increases your risk for prostate cancer. There is no evidence that hormone replacement therapy increases your risk for cardiovascular disease. In fact, the opposite. It reduces your risk for cardiovascular disease, and all the evidence is cited. And this is largely because the heart itself has the highest number of receptors for testosterone, about 10,000 receptors in a male heart and female heart for testosterone. So our hormones don't just, so let me give you an example. Someone comes in and says, I'm tired. I don't have any energy. Very likely what is causing low energy is low oxygen. When you have low oxygen in your blood, you don't have any energy. So people that are exhausted also sleep the worst, and I'll explain that in a second. But when you're exhausted, it's because you don't have any oxygen in your blood. If you said, Gary, I had a lot of energy today, physiologically what you're saying is, I had a lot of oxygen in my blood today. So if oxygen equals energy, which it does, and the question is, how do I raise the oxygen in my body? You raise what carries oxygen, red blood cells and hemoglobin. How do I get more red blood cells and hemoglobin? You go to the factory that makes it. What is that? The bone marrow. Okay, how do I get the bone marrow to make more red blood cells and hemoglobin? You go to the boss of the bone marrow. And okay, who's that? The hormone testosterone. Testosterone, one of its primary roles is to put pressure on the bone marrow to make more red blood cells. This is called erythropoiesis. So if you're low on testosterone and free testosterone, you are generally low on red blood cell and hemoglobin, which means you are tired. Before I replaced testosterone, I would look at the precursors for testosterone, things like DHEA. I would look at proteins in the blood like sex hormone binding globulin, which is a protein that carries testosterone, free testosterone out of the blood. I would look at my vitamin D3 level. I would then take a step outside of the organ that produces testosterone, which is the testicle. And I would make sure that it had the right signaling hormones. I would make sure that the tuner wasn't set to 2, so the music was playing at 2. I would check to see maybe the tuner's on 10 and the music's still at 2. Because the testicles don't decide how much testosterone they secrete. The pituitary does. And we can mimic these signals with lots of things. Enclomiphene, we can mimic it with peptides, gonadorelin, kisspeptin, human chorionic gonadotropin. So there are ways for us to raise these hormone levels naturally. And if that doesn't work, then by all means, hormone replacement therapy is life-saving. Raise the oxygen, improve circulation, you improve the texture and tone of the skin, you produce better collagen, elastin, and fibrin. Your waste elimination pathways are strengthened. I mean, there's so much that hormones do. They regulate mood, they regulate emotion, they regulate our behavior. And so they're everything that makes men men and women women.
Yeah.
And I think we are so afraid of putting hormones in our body for the wrong reasons. And then when you talk about peptides, I am an enormous fan of peptides.
I would like you to tell me my killer stack right now.
Depends on what your goals are.
And also say, because I'm only on 1 ml of testosterone. So I would like you
Weekly?
to say 2 ml right now.
Yeah.
So I can replay this to the doctor and say that you're comfortable with me.
Look, if you're in the upper 80, 90 percentile for testosterone, 800 to 1100, you're in the sweet spot for testosterone.
Okay, nice.
And you want to make sure that your free testosterone is in the same range, not the same number, but in the same range. So if your testosterone is in the 80th percentile, your free testosterone should be in the 80th percentile. Usually different variations between these have a couple of reasons. The main reason is this binding protein called sex hormone binding protein, which you can easily get rid of by taking the mineral boron. So you can take boron and get rid of this. But peptides are fascinating. So peptides are amino acids. They're analogs of other compounds, and they act like all kinds of different things. Secretagogues, mimetics. Mimetics means it mimics something that happens in the body. A secretagogue means it causes an organ to secrete something like growth hormone or testosterone. So I would put them into different groups. So there are peptides that will rewind your pituitary to a more youthful level of growth hormone secretion.
Like BP157?
BPC157 is a healing peptide.
Okay.
That's a gastric pentadecapeptide synthesized from gastric juice that's really good for tissue and wound repair because it calls platelets to the site of injury. It's great for healing and sealing and repairing the gut. It's great for repetitive use injuries, knees, hips, shoulders, rotator cuffs, low backs, necks. It's a phenomenal peptide. It's also great for your skin. It also lowers inflammation. It stands for body protection compound 157. And it is one of the few peptides that's tolerated very well orally because it's actually synthesized from gastric juice. Most other peptides you need to take sublingually to skip first-pass metabolism or by injection or through a patch, transdermal patch. But there are classes of peptides which are called growth hormone secreting hormones and growth hormone secreting peptides. So there are growth hormone secreting hormones, growth hormone secreting peptides, and GHRPs, GHRHs. And what these do is they cause the pituitary to rewind its secretion of growth hormone to a more youthful level. You usually want to time these with your circadian cycle. You have your largest pulse of growth hormone at night after a meal right before bed. It's part of your circadian cycle. So that's when you want to take these peptides. You usually want to take both, not either a GHRP or a GHRH. So common combinations might be sermorelin, ipamorelin, CJC1295, and ipamorelin. Tesamorelin is one you can take on its own. It's a very powerful peptide. I'm not a big fan of MK677 or ibutamorin because this is one of the few peptides that causes a hormonal bleed.
Okay.
So the way that the pituitary secretes growth hormone is it's like a cup, and it fills up and then it dumps, and then it slowly fills up and then it dumps. If you leave it on its side as the body is producing growth hormones, just leaking into the bloodstream, right? And this causes fatigue. So there are those growth hormone secreting hormones. There are peptides that are designed to lengthen our telomeres, things like epitalon or apidolon. Some people.
How many of them can you stack together? Because right now you've named 15, which I'm happy to do all together.
Yeah.
But I mean,
and you can stack them together
when it becomes a bit too much. And also, with the GH, the growth hormone, there's the risk of cancer or whatever that people have always put this kind of, if you take growth hormone, it's going to grow your tumors. Or
if you have cancer, it may let you know it sooner, but it's not going to give you cancer.
So if your cancer markers are all clear, it's fine.
You're fine. And there's not a direct causal relationship between growth hormone releasing hormones and peptides and the exacerbation of cancer. There's a correlated link, and there's evidentiary links that say, well, if you're going to if you're going to be a growth stimulant and you have a hypermetabolic cell, it makes sense that it may grow the cell. We don't have proof that happens. So we do with human growth hormone, with the HGH, external HGH. So stacking peptides is about stacking different systems. So you don't want to take CJC 1295, ipamol, and tesamorel, and start stacking all the growth hormone peptides. But you can take a growth hormone peptide and an anti-anxiolytic like Cellular, a growth hormone peptide and a tissue and wound repair peptide like BPC 157 or TB500 or GHKCU, which is a copper peptide. It's really, really good for the skin. It's fine to stack different systems. It's not good to stack the same system. So you wouldn't want to be taking testosterone, something to boost testosterone, something to actually cause
then you're just going to be road raging everywhere you go.
Exactly. And you're also going to burn out your receptors. So you don't stack the same system. You stack different systems. So let's just say, for example, you want to lose weight, fat. You want to burn fat.
Write this down, please.
You want to
he's about to say my stack, so write this down, please. You want to get shredded.
You want to get shredded.
Muscle mass.
You want to get shredded. You want a bit more muscle mass in the peptide world. And you're also dealing with either a little bit of leaky gut or a nagging lateral tennis elbow, lateral epicondylitis. You have some low back stiffness. So you're sore and achy, but you want to gain muscle. You want to burn fat. Growth hormone releasing hormones and peptides are perfect for this. They improve fatty acid metabolism and they improve lean muscle metabolism. They actually cause something called muscle hyperplasia, not just muscle hypertrophy. Muscle hypertrophy is when you tear a muscle and it grows back larger. Hyperplasia is when new tissue grows around that tear.
Well, hypertrophy is going to be caused by the way you train, not by what you're putting in your body, right?
That's correct. But it actually helps the repair of hypertrophy. So hypertrophy is a torn myofibril that actually grows back
filaments
larger.
Bridge the gap and then
Exactly. Yeah. So if you want to repair faster, you can use growth hormone peptides. They also improve the tone and texture of your skin because they're very good for collagen, elastin, and fibrin in the skin. They actually can thicken the dermal layer of the skin, which makes you appear more youthful, right? Makes your skin appear more youthful. And they're generally very, very safe. The 5 days on, 2 days off protocol is considered one of the best anti-tachyphylactic protocols, desensitization study protocols, and you can take these for prolonged periods of time. There are other peptides you use for specific use. So let's say you're on a longevity journey and you want to lengthen your telomeres. There are telomerase lengthening peptides, epitalon. There are peptides specific for anxiety. They're called anti-anxiolytics, like Cellular. The tissue repair peptides are phenomenal. I would put the top 3 as BPC 157, TB500, or TB4 frag, a fragmented version of TB4, and GHKCU, the copper peptide. I work with a company called Peptides, and they make a lot of these in patches, and they're 12-hour patches. So you can put on this patch NAD+, you can put, which is NAD.
And it works as well as
same serum concentration as an injection.
Really?
Absolutely. Yep. They will go transdermal and cause the same serum level as an injection. The reason why injection is better than oral or other routes is dose dependent. So if you inject 200 milligrams of something versus you want to use a patch and also get to 200 milligrams, you might have to take a higher dose patch to account for if it's oral swallowing and for loss through the skin. So BPC 157, TB500, GHKCU, those are phenomenal peptides. Insulin is a peptide. GLP-1 is a peptide. So we've actually been familiar with peptides long before most of us knew that's what they were. The GLP-1s are peptides. I'm a fan of retatrutide. Very little of a fan of semaglutide, Wegovy or Ozempic. Not much of a fan of tirzepatide, which is Mounjaro, but I'm a huge fan of retatrutide. KPV is a great one for healing and sealing and repairing the gut. And what these peptides do is they're signaling molecules. So BPC 157, for example, accelerates wound repairing, not because BPC is doing anything, but because it's calling your own platelets and your own growth factors to the site of an injury. So whereas a lateral epicondylitis or tennis elbow might have taken you 10, 12 weeks to get over, you get over it in 3 weeks.
Wow.
And our US FDA, maybe by the time this podcast comes out, because we're in about a 10, 12 day window, is about to take 23 peptides from research use only back to compound for human use. And I think this is a phenomenal step in the right direction.
Yeah, it's incredible. And you were saying that we've had him before. I remember like 25 years ago, a friend of mine who was training, he was on GHRP6 and GHRP2. And
GHRP6 makes you really hungry.
Yeah, really hungry, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's great for weight gain.
And the other one is for shredding, I think. I can't remember. GHRP2?
Yeah, GHRP2.
Yeah. And it's like, these were just numbers to me back in the day because I wasn't doing tests, I wasn't doing anything, but he looked incredible.
Yeah.
And you're talking 25 years ago.
Yeah,
so
GFLR3.
They were there for so long. NAD Plus and methylene blue. It's called methylene blue?
It's called methylene blue.
Methylene blue.
So methylene blue is a fabric dye. And what it does is inside the cell, it changes the state of iron, not to bore you to tears, but from a ferrous state to a ferric state. And why that's important is because it pulls oxygen from the cytoplasm, from the serum of the blood across the cell membrane into the cell. So anytime I can get more oxygen inside the cell, I have more oxygen available for my mitochondria. And mitochondria are the powerhouse of the cell. They're creating the only source of energy that human beings are powered by. That's called ATP, adenosine triphosphate. Yeah. And inside the mitochondria, there are these little motors. It's called the Krebs cycle. And it's spinning around and spinning around. Every time this motor makes one revolution, it has two choices. It can either create 2 units of energy, 2 ATP, or it can create 36 units of energy.
It's essentially like creatine, right?
It's like it's like creatine. It's like it's like if a car lot only sold 2 cars, a 100 horsepower car and a 1600 horsepower car. That's it. That's kind of what the Krebs cycle has, a choice to either create 2 ATP or 36 ATP. So the question is, what makes it 16 times more powerful or 16 times less powerful? The presence of oxygen. So now if methylene blue can, amongst other things, it fights nitric oxide, it does a couple other things, but if methylene blue can get more oxygen into the cell, and then you can add red light therapy to this, this is like a 1 + 1 is 10, not 1 + 1 is 2. Taking methylene blue prophylactically, just to take it, I'm not a big fan of that at all, actually. I am a fan of using methylene blue in conjunction with red light, because when you use it in conjunction with red light will pass through the skin, it'll pass through the cell wall, it'll pass through the mitochondrial wall, and what it will do is it will kick out a gas from the mitochondria. It's called mitochondrial nitric oxide. It dissociates this gas from an area in the mitochondria called cytochrome C oxidase. When this gas gets dissociated, oxygen docks. What does that mean? You just had a 16-fold step up in cellular energy. So when you combine methylene blue and red light therapy, it's like putting oxygen into your cells on steroids.
Wow.
And this can very often correct the metabolism of a broken cell. A metabolically sick cell can be healed by reversing its metabolism back to being metabolically healthy, which methylene blue and red light therapy do.
I feel like the next time you come here, this lighting grid is going to have loads of drips just hanging from there all over the place. I'm going to be like Neo in the Matrix, just like with loads of wires coming out of me. I did it, Gary, I did it. I'm going to be like 14 years old when you come back. Last messages to, again, I'm more than aware of your time and that you've got things to do. And
I got a few more minutes. We'll run a few more.
What kind of message do you, no, actually, you know that guy, I'm blanking on his name now, who's trying to live forever.
Johnson.
You knew already that I was going to bring to this.
I just saw him in DC.
Yeah, I really hope that nothing bad happens to him other than his mission, because it would be such a shame for a car accident or something to just ruin everything that he's doing, and everyone's going, see, I told you. Well, no, he was on a different mission. He didn't mean like I'm never going to die ever. If you can't shoot him, I'm not going to shoot him and he's still going to be alive. But what do you think of his mission and his thing, and especially coming from a place of faith? Because we believe, people who are God-fearing, that we eventually have to return to him, and he wants us to return to him.
That's very true.
So we kind of don't want to live forever.
Right. We don't want to live forever.
Right. So,
and I don't think living forever is yet possible. I think living to 120 or 140 is very possible. In fact, if you're alive 5 years from today, it will be your choice whether or not you want to live to age 120 or 140. Wow. That technology is already here. The ability to rewind the immune system, to cleanse our blood, to use stem cells and exosomes to repair tissue, the convergence of early detection, big data, and artificial intelligence. That is a combination unlike anything we've ever seen in the modern era of humanity and medicine, because an AI platform can take 700 trillion independent variables and create an actionable result. We can now study things in vivo or in vitro, comparing 700 trillion independent results. So we can actually do much more than just a randomized clinical trial now because of artificial intelligence. But I think what Bryan Johnson is showing us is what's possible, but not what's practical, right? Most people don't have that kind of money to spend on their health. And I don't fault him for that at all. He's a self-made guy. But
you have that much money. It's like Batman, right? You get bored, so you got to think of something cool to do.
Yeah. But I mean, what better thing to do than to tune into your own cellular biology? I mean, and he's showing us what's possible. What I do like about what he's doing is that he's not just random, he's data-driven. In fact, what he's done is taken himself completely out of the equation, right? He doesn't decide what he eats, doesn't decide when he goes to bed. He does not decide how he exercises. He doesn't decide what supplements to take. The data does.
He's just following the algorithm that's set for him.
I will say, the one thing I think about, and this is not to attack Bryan Johnson at all, I think he's doing a lot for humanity, because I think he's very public about his journey. He posts his sleep scores, he posts his routine, everything. He's very, very open about it. Is that I wonder about that sense of community and connection. Right?
It's like self-isolation, isn't it?
Yeah, like self-isolation versus a real sense of community, a real sense of connection. I felt for him as a father when I watched the documentary, seeing that he was estranged from his kids. That to me has got to be loneliness and despair at a level that I couldn't even, contrive.
The cost of the reward isn't worth the sacrifice, right?
Like the thought of me being estranged from any one of my kids, that would be.
I certainly don't want to outlive them either.
Worst
I definitely don't want to outlive my kids.
No.
So that's another thing,
I don't attack Bryan. I know that he gets a lot of flack online, but I think that he's doing good things for humanity. He's given us into a window into exactly what he's doing. He's very transparent about it. Like I said, he publishes his data, and he's very data driven. But I wonder about this community, purpose, connection.
It really is like what we were here for, right? Just as people, humans naturally are drawn towards each other. So it's actually going against human nature to separate yourself.
It is, to isolate yourself.
Very true. Gary, this has been absolutely incredible.
That's been great.
And unfortunately for you, this is one of a 9-part series that we're going to do.
No, if you'll have me back, I'd love to come back and continue the conversation.
Taking that chair away. Yeah. And everyone else can use a different chair now. That's Gary's chair now. So every time you come here, it's going to be like those, in the movies, it has Gary on the back of it, like kind of thing.
It would be fun if you tell your audience to submit their top list of questions, and maybe I'll come back in a few weeks, and we'll just really address the audience.
100%.
Like, hey, what are the big things that you are trying to distill out there? What are the things that you'd really like more clarity on? And we'll run this again in a few weeks.
100%. Gary, thank you so much.
You're very welcome, brother. Thank you for having me too.
Guys, we'll see you next time.
That's just science.
Boom.